Jake's apartment. Night Jake, a 30-year-old software developer, sits on his couch browsing listings on his laptop. He sighs in frustration. Housing in the city has become impossible to find. He clicks on another listing that looks promising, but is immediately disappointed to see it has already been rented. Just then, his phone buzzed. It's a text from his friend Emma. Emma, hey, I might have a lead for you. My cousin's friend is looking for a roommate in their building. Want me to put you in touch? Jake sighs in relief. At this point, he'll take anything. He texts back, Jake, yes please, send me the details. The next day, Jake gets on a call with Samantha, the potential roommate. She explains that her friend Jenny's old roommate suddenly moved out, and she's been scrambling to find a replacement. The apartment is a nice 2-bedroom in Brooklyn, within Jake's budget. It seems like it could be a perfect fit. They agree to meet that afternoon so Jake can check it out. He shows up outside the nondescript brownstone, buzzes the apartment, and Samantha lets him up. Jenny and Samantha's apartment. The apartment is nice. Big windows let in lots of natural light, hardwood floors, updated kitchen. Jake is impressed. Samantha, so, what do you think? Jake, it seems great. Very homey. Samantha beams, relieved. She gives him a tour of the apartment, showing him both bedrooms and the bathroom. The empty bedroom will be his if he wants it. As they wrap up the tour, Jake's attention is drawn to noises coming from the other side of the wall, loud banging and struggling sounds. Jake shoots Samantha with a concerned look. She rolls her eyes. Samantha. Ugh, that's just our weird neighbors next door. Don't worry about them. Jake nods tentatively. Other than that, the apartment seems perfect. They hash out details like rent, utilities, move-in timeline. Jake is eager to get out of his cramped studio, so he agrees on the spot. Jake's apartment, night. Jake excitedly tells Emma about seeing the apartment and deciding to move in. Emma, that's great. I'm glad it worked out. Just beware of the neighbors. Samantha mentioned they can be a little eccentric. Jake, ha. Yeah, I got a sense of that from the sounds coming through the wall. Fingers crossed they keep to themselves. Emma, fingers crossed. Well, congrats on the new place. Let me know if you need any help moving. Jake, will do. Thanks, Em. A few weeks have passed and it's move-in day. Jake loads up his car with boxes, furniture, clothes, everything he owns. He takes one last look around his empty studio before heading to his new home. Jake's bedroom, Jenny and Samantha's apartment, night. Jake lies in his new bed, exhausted after a long day of moving. But he's thrilled to be in a bigger, brighter space. Through the wall, he can faintly hear his neighbors moving around but tries to tune it out, drifting off to sleep. In the middle of the night, Jake is jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream from next door. He sits up startled, listening intently. More disturbing screams and crashes, as if a full-blown fight is happening. Jake feels incredibly unsettled, but also doesn't want to get involved. He waits anxiously for the sounds to subside, pulling his blankets tighter. Eventually, it dies down and he falls back into a fitful sleep. The next morning, Jake recounts the noises to Samantha over coffee. She just shrugs. Samantha. I told you, they're weird. Best to just avoid them, honestly. Jake nods uneasily, but his curiosity is piqued. Who are these strange neighbors and what's really going on next door? Over the next few weeks, Jake continues to be woken up sporadically by odd noises and commotions from the neighboring apartment. Banging, yelling, terrifying screams in the dead of night. During the day, it's eerily quiet. Jake mentions it to Emma, who encourages him to snoop around, try to get to the bottom of what's really happening. One afternoon, when it's quiet, Jake decides to investigate. Hallway, outside. Jake and Samantha's apartment. Jake peers out the peephole, checking that the coast is clear. Then slips silently into the hallway and tiptoes over to the neighboring apartment. He presses his ear up against the door. At first, all is quiet. Then faintly, a strange chanting can be heard, in a language Jake doesn't recognize. The hairs on his neck stand up. Just then the door swings open suddenly. Jake jumps back with a yelp, coming face to face with the neighbor. An incredibly pale, gaunt man with sunken eyes stares down at Jake, caught eavesdropping. Jake is paralyzed with fear. The neighbor, in a raspy whisper, "What do you want?" Jake stammers nervously, caught red-handed. "Jake's sorry to bother you. The noises, they're concerning. I was worried." The neighbor fixes Jake with an intense, unblinking stare. For a long, terrifying moment, neither moves. Then, without a word, the neighbor slams the door in Jake's face. Jake stands trembling in the hallway, heart pounding. He scrambles back to his apartment, more unsettled than ever about the creepy occupants next door. There's more going on here than meets the eye. That night, another horrific screaming fit wakes Jake from his restless sleep. He calls Emma in a panic. "Jake. Em, something is seriously wrong over there. I just encountered the neighbor. It was like looking into the eyes of death or something. We need to figure out what's happening." Emma. Okay. Calm down. Let me make some calls and see what I can dig up about your neighbors. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise. Try to get some rest. Jake hangs up the phone but finds it impossible to relax, on edge after his disturbing encounter. What new horrors will the night bring? The next day, Emma calls Jake with an unsettling discovery. She did some research, and apparently the neighbors, Angela and Oscar Pendejo, have a long rap sheet. Assaults, domestic disputes, public disturbances, but none of the charges seem to stick. Emma. Something isn't right, Jake. I think we need to get the authorities involved before someone really gets hurt. Stay safe, okay? This confirms Jake's worst fears. There's serious trouble going on next door, and he needs to take action to protect himself and his roommate. That night, he calls the police to report the pendejos, hoping they can put a stop to the threatening behavior once and for all. A few hours later, the whole apartment building is shaken awake by an enormous crash and unearthly screeches from next door. Jake springs from bed and runs to the window, watching in horror as blue and red police lights flash all around. He bolts from his apartment just in time to see the police emerging from the Pendejo's apartment, dragging a disheveled Angela and Oscar kicking and screaming. But their apartment is left wide open. Jake cautiously peers inside. The place is an unholy wreck. Overturned furniture, clawed walls, strange ritual drawings, and symbols smeared everywhere in blood. In the corner, a gigantic metal birdcage dangles precariously from the ceiling, its door left ajar. A loud flap of wings sends Jake leaping back with a scream as a monstrous, misshapen creature burst from the cage. Leathery black wings, talons like daggers, a twisted mixture of human and bird. It lets out an unearthly shriek and takes to the skies, aiming straight for Jake. He slams the apartment door just in time, the creature slamming into it with an awful thud. Jake locks the door and races down the stairs. Just as outside, he hears the police cars screech away, the bird creature giving chase into the night. Has Jake finally uncovered the true horror happening in his building next door? What twisted secrets were the pendejos hiding all along, and how far will they go to protect their dark rituals? Jake and Emma are. The next morning, Jake is still shaken from the events of the previous night. He recounts the disturbing details to Emma over coffee at their local diner. Emma, this just keeps getting weirder and weirder. I think it's time we paid a visit to the police station to see what they've learned from questioning Angela and Oscar. And I want to do some digging of our own into whatever occult crap they were clearly into. Jake nods in agreement. After finishing their coffees, they head to the precinct. There they talk to a detective who was first on the scene last night. Detective Ramos. Between the wounds on their bodies and that hellhole of an apartment, it's clear those two were into some dark stuff. Not ruling out drugs either. As for the bird creature, who knows, could have been a hallucination from all the crazy shit they were doing. But I'll be honest, after last night, nothing would surprise me. This gives Jake and Emma even more resolve to get to the bottom of it. They thank the detective and leave, planning their next steps. Emma suggests starting their research at the local occult bookstore and metaphysical shop, hoping to find clues as to what specific rituals the pendejos may have been practicing. In the cramped store, they pore through books on paganism, witchcraft, strange religions from around the world. Nothing is jumping out, until Emma finds an old leather-bound book tucked away in a dusty corner. Emma, Jake, take a look at this. There's a full chapter devoted to Aves Nocturne, the night birds. Looks like some ancient ritual involving summoning dark avian demons. They scan the disturbing passages and illustrations. It's beginning to line up with the evidence from the apartment, the strange symbols, the giant bird cage. A chill runs down Jake's spine as the pieces slowly come together. These night birds. They give power and darkness to their summoners but require intense blood sacrifice to maintain control. If the bonds are broken... Emma slams the book shut, both reeling from the revelation. They've uncovered the true horror the pendejos were invoking in that apartment. But is it over now that they're in custody? Or will the nightmare only escalate from here? Just then, out of the corner of his eye, Jake spots something shifting among the stacks. He turns to find them, Angela and Oscar Pendejo, out of jail already and watching silently from the shadows. Jake grabs Emma's arm, and they bolt from the store as fast as they could, the Pendejos' unnerving laughter echoing behind them. They've been found. The hunt is on. Will Jake and Emma be able to stay one step ahead of the now deranged and dangerous Angelas and Oscar? What disturbing powers do the nightbirds still hold over them all? Their strange neighborhood is about to get even stranger. Jake and Emma are shaken after their chilling encounter at the occult bookstore. They retreat to Jake's apartment, double-checking all the locks and windows are secured. Samantha comes home and notices their frazzled state. Over a six-pack, they fill her in on all the terrifying developments. Samantha. I knew that the whole family was bad news from the start. You guys should get out of here, at least for a little while until things cool off. Why don't you come stay with me and Jenny upstate for a few days? Jake and Emma agree it's probably the safest bet for now. But as they're packing a bag, a resounding bang sounds on the front door, making them all jump. In a panic, they peer through the peephole to see Angela and Oscar Pendejo leering menacingly back at them. But how did they find their new address so quickly? Through the door, they can hear Oscar's raspy voice. Oscar, we know you've been poking around where you don't belong. Time to face the music. A chill runs down their spines at his unhinged laughter. They'll have to get out another way. Sneaking out the fire escape, they hustle down the alley and jump into Samantha's car. But as she peels away, they notice a shadowy figure swooping down from above. It's the nightbird, massive wingspans blotting out the moonlight, following closely behind. Jake looks on in horror as its talons rip into the roof of the car. Samantha slams on the gas, careening wildly down side streets to lose their pursuer. But the crazed creature is undeterred, screeching as it relentlessly gives chase. After several harrowing near misses, they finally manage to lose it, the nightbird veering off into the night. But they've seen firsthand the lengths of the pendejos, and their dark forces will go to track them down. There will be no escaping this evil so easily. Shaken, they arrive at Samantha's family home upstate, relieved to get some distance for now. But Jake's nightmares are plagued with visions of leathery wings and glinting talons, a constant reminder that the horror is far from over. In the morning, fresh air and a home-cooked breakfast help lift their spirits. Emma tries to lend some reassurance. Emma. We know more now than we did, and knowing is power against these dark forces. There must be a way to break the Pendejo's hold over that creature permanently. I say it's time we pay another visit to that occult bookstore, do some more digging. What do you say? Jake and Samantha agree it's their best shot. Back in the thick of it is daunting, but they're committed to stopping the Pendejos and bringing an end to the nightmare once and for all. That afternoon, they cautiously make their way back into the city. Stepping into the bookstore, they find it eerily empty. Too empty. A flutter of wings alerts them to danger, but it's too late. The nightbird swoops in and snatches Emma, flying off with her screams fading into the distance. Enraged, Jake gives chase with Samantha right behind him. They tear through the stacks and burst back outside just in time to see the creature delivering Emma into the clutches of Angela and Oscar Pendejo, waiting heavily in their dilapidated panel van. The nightbird caws triumphantly as the van peels away down the alley, Emma's muffled cries for help drifting in the wind. Jake is left shaking with fear and rage, faced with his greatest challenge yet to save his friends from the dark forces that have engulfed them all. The final showdown is nearby. Will Jake find a way to break the Pendejo's control and free their souls? Or will the nightmare next door claim its final victims once and for all? Darkness descends. Jake is gripped with fear and determination in equal parts. He and Samantha race back to the house, furiously combing through every occult text for clues. There must be something, some weakness they can exploit. Finally, tucked deep in a seemingly irrelevant passage, they find a crucial detail. Emma. The demons draw power from ritual sacrifice, but their hold is fragile. Break the seal with holy fire, and their corruption is undone. Holy fire. It's a long shot, but their only option. They gather materials, salt, lighter fluid, sage, and speed back to the city under cover of night. Following Emma's phone GPS, they trace her location to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. As they approach, otherworldly chanting and flashes of red light pour from within. The ritual is already underway. Jake and Samantha steel their nerves, dousing salt in a large circle around the building before igniting it with the lighter fluid. An unnatural wind whips up as the flames rise higher, the veil between worlds beginning to tear. Inside, Emma lies bound on an altar of bones as Angela and Oscar recite profane incantations. The nightbird circles restlessly above, feeding off the dark power swelling in the air. It can sense the flames disrupting its hold. With an ear-splitting screech, it swoops down, aiming deadly talons at Angela. But she's prepared. Slicing her forearm, she lets the blood spray into its gaping beak. Its thirst is slated for now. Just then, the Pendejos notice the flames raging outside, realizing too late what's happening. They race for the exit, but Jake and Samantha bar the way, a ring of holy fire surrounding the whole building. There will be no escape. The nightbird shrieks in anguish as the corruption is purged from its form, shrinking away into wisps of smoke until only a lone feather remains, drifting to the floor. The Pendejos howl in despair and rage at losing their dark familiarity. In a last act of desperation, Oscar charges Jake with a ritual blade, but the flames have weakened him, and Jake is able to dodge, wrestling the knife away. Out of options, Angela and Oscar accept their defeat. As police sirens approach in the distance, the pair sink to their knees among the ashes of their thwarted evil. The nightmare is over at last. Jake rushes to free Emma from her binds. She throws her arms around him, weeping with relief. Samantha joins in the emotional embrace. Through perseverance and courage in the face of true darkness, they have emerged triumphant. Backlit by the dying flames, they watch as the Pendejos are apprehended once more, this time to face justice for their sins. The evil has been contained, and peace can return to their strange neighborhood. But they will never forget the nightmares next door, and the battle they fought to defeat the darkness within. A few months have passed since that fateful night at the warehouse. Emma has recovered well physically and psychologically from her ordeal. The scars on all their souls, however, will take longer to fade. The pendejos have been locked away in a high-security psychiatric facility, where they'll undergo evaluation and treatment for their twisted beliefs and violent tendencies. The police were able to corroborate multiple past crimes using evidence from their apartments. Justice is served in its own way. Jake decides it's time for a fresh start, putting the nightmare of the past year fully behind him. He and Emma find a charming little house, together in the countryside, with plenty of space to heal and move forward. Samantha remains in the city but keeps in close contact. She's become fast friends with Jake and Emma after their harrowing shared experience battling darkness. They make a point to get together regularly for board games and long talks by the fireplace. As for the old apartment building, it seems the residual evil there has been quelled for now. Normalcy has returned. The new tenants complain of nothing more than the usual urban noises drifting through thin walls. Jake continues to process everything that happened through journaling and meditation. Though scarred, he's emerged wiser and stronger of spirit. He volunteers with an occult investigation nonprofit, hoping to help others facing supernatural threats or undiagnosed mental illnesses. Emma finishes her psychology PhD, specializing in ritual practices and their effects on the human psyche. While the wounds run deep, helping others heal gives her purpose. Together, they continue learning from their ordeal, using painful lessons to empower positive change. As for any lingering remnants of the nightmare next door, time will tell if darkness may one day stir again in that strange place. But for now, a soothing peace has settled over the lives of our heroes. They can only go forward with wisdom, courage, and compassion to face whatever evils may yet come.